Enterprise Management 360.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Tech Chat. We're here at the EXL in London for the Digital Transformation Europe. I'm joined by Marco, who is one of our client managers. So Marco, tell me about what's going on at the event today and what you're looking forward to.
Hi Max, so we are very excited for the event. We will have three key areas that we will be covering here: AI and analytics, IP Expo, and also Cybersecurity Expo. We'll be meeting and talking to some key speakers from vendors to see what they've been up to and also some of the key latest solutions they've been bringing to the market. So I'm very excited and looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a good day. I'm looking forward to all the people we're speaking to. So let's get started with that first interview. So I'm joined now by Andrew Gogarty. Thank you so much for joining me today. Would you mind just first of all giving us a bit of background on Second Cyber?
Yes, so we're a managed security service provider, been running for over 20 years now. We focus on helping organisations protect themselves against cyber attacks, working on the understanding that there's no such thing as 100% security, so being able to react quickly in the event that something does get through your defences.
Excellent, excellent. So one thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about, is there any way that there can be any kind of cybersecurity best practice? Because obviously threats are growing so much at the moment. How can we kind of get to almost an industry standard?
Yeah, so it's a tough situation. So the threats are increasing, and that's because barriers to entry for the bad actors is pretty much non-existent anymore with the tools available on the dark web. We made it easier for them as well with what business is trying to do at the moment in terms of mobilisation of the workforce, work-life balance, also a big drive towards a cloud to take advantages of digital transformation. A lot of organisations are approaching their security the way they approached it 20 years ago with that castle walls. Those castle walls have kind of been perforated now with everyone moving everything out. Yeah. The two constants are the users and the data. So when I'm talking to organisations about best practice, it's to try and get yourself in the mind of what a bad actor would be interested in and what type of bad actor. So most organisations are worried about the targeted attacker and think that they're going in for something specific. What I call sort of basic best practice gets neglected. So the opportunists will take advantage of bad patching practices, not keeping your security tools up to date and configured in line as the changed threat. So we typically, after an organisation has been breached and we're in that malware cleanup scenario, over 90% of the time that customer could have prevented the attack with the tool set they had if it had been configured properly. So we typically find someone installed something 2 years ago and it's not been touched since.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. You've got to be proactive rather than reactive at the end of the day. So there it is. But well, thanks so much, Andrew. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I'm joined by Derek from Lantronix. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I think best starting off point is give us a little background on Lantronix.
Okay, so Lantronix is a technology company. It's been around for about 25 years now, maybe even getting on for 30. And we have two sides to our business. One is IoT, Internet of Things, so chips and smaller devices. And the other side of the business is an out-of-band offering, which is really what we're showcasing today at the show here.
Excellent. I want to talk about that with the out-of-band. So why would an organisation want to implement an out-of-band solution?
I think it's a very big question, but I think these days networks are getting more complex and more distributed. And by that I mean they're spread out in many regions and in a lot of cases many countries. And it's becoming a challenge for IT teams and network teams to look after the equipment that is in those locations. Essentially, people call it edge these days or fog, but it's that sort of scenario. And where out-of-band comes in is it gives smaller network teams or large network teams, depending on the size of the company, the ability to manage, maintain, monitor, and fix the pieces of equipment that are attached to that distributed network. The in-band part of that is when the network is up and running, and it stops truck roll and allows people to do this very easily. The clever part is, and the out-of-band part, is when the network goes down. And they all go down from time to time. And we give the network teams a secondary route into those boxes and those locations to allow them to hopefully fix the problem and bring the network back up again.
Sounds perfect, lovely. So another element I want to look at here is, has the growth of SD-WAN deployment reduced the need for OOB?
Really interesting question. I was just watching one of the keynote speakers talking about the growth of SD-WAN. In fact, I think he said something like 50 to 60% of network deployments over the next 2 years will be SD-WAN based. And the common thought is that if you've got SD-WAN, out-of-band becomes less important. That couldn't be further from the truth. SD-WAN is still a network. It relies on the network to run, and it relies on the resilience of the network for it to do its job. So if the network isn't running, then of course SD-WAN doesn't do it. So where out-of-band comes in is the same. It's all about the integrity of the physical network and the resilience of that network. So out-of-band solution will allow the network to keep up and running and be resilient, and allow the network team to keep that resiliency up and running. But more importantly, when the network fails, again, as before, the out-of-band solution allows the team to get in and fix that problem, and then consequently SD-WAN can then do its job again. So it sits very much alongside an SD-WAN solution as opposed to SD-WAN replacing the solution.
Well, Derek, I really appreciate your insight into everything you've spoken about today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming on board.
So now I'm joined by Paul. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I think the best starting off point is tell us a little bit about Code 42.
Well, Code 42 has been around for over a decade now, and we started life in the consumer backup world, protecting people from things like hard disk failures, loss of laptop, loss of data, and those kinds of things.
Sounds perfect. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on how you position yourselves against traditional data loss prevention.
Yeah, great question. I think the focus for traditional data loss prevention is actually on prevention, and that's not our focus, because the customers that we speak to, the prospects that we speak to, we typically find that prevention for them doesn't work. They have many problems with it in terms of usability. People want access to all the cloud-based applications, such as things like Dropbox, OneDrive, those kinds of things. Some people have exceptions to policy requirements, such as the need to use USB. So we found that in 90% of our customer environments, the actual prevention piece is actually switched off, and DLP is in monitor mode anyway. But because it's in monitor mode anyway, it's only looking at what you're telling it to look at because it relies on policy. So we're policy free. We look at all the data. We pretty much treat it all as equally as important, and we allow you to provide you with visibility to all of that data, regardless of where it moves to or from.
Sounds perfect. Well, thanks so much for your insight today, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's a wrap here at the EXCEL for Digital Transformation Europe 2019. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone who took the time to talk to us. It's been great getting insight today. Now, if you're interested in generating leads for your business, then make sure you go over to the Tell Us Your Audience page, where we can generate your content across North America, APAC, and Europe. And then we can generate SQLs and MQLs right back to you. Also, make sure you go onto Twitter and LinkedIn to follow all the latest EM360 news. And of course, go to em360tech.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.